Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. And friends, we are back in Calloway County with workers' compensation attorney Jeff Roberts, and today we're going to talk about some injuries that occur in automotive parts, facilities, metal forming plants, things like that, which are all over Western Kentucky. That's for sure. Jeff, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jim.
All right, buddy. So let's jump into this. As we talked in the last episode, we kind of honed in on really food production, but today we're going to move over into more heavier industry where you've got metal forming and die casting and stamping and these types of issues all over the place. A few of them that really popped to mind for us as we were prepping for this were, for instance, over in Russellville, you've got Logan Aluminum, and then you've got Kobe Aluminum over in Bowling Green. I mean, two big plants where they're doing a lot. But that's not the only ones, right? There's, CCMA over in Calvert City?
Calvert City Metal and Alloys over in Calvert City they do make metal over there. And then you've got a lot of other places that work with metal, make metal parts or parts for automotive industries. Martinria and several others around that do that.
Yeah, T-Rad's over there in Hopkinsville, right?
In Hopkinsville, Martinria over in the Hopkinsville area. From that standpoint, there's a couple here in Murray as well that do that. From that standpoint, so that's a growing industry and has been a big industry in Western Kentucky for quite some time.
Yeah, there's Accuride Wheels over in the Henderson area. I've been in that plant many times.
Yes.
So just there's a lot of different metal forming, metal die casting, as we said, all over the place throughout the industry here or throughout the region here.
Well, and even some other, as I've told you, I think I mentioned on this before, but I worked at for a long time here in Murray. There was a Briggs and Stratton plant that assembled small engines, but part of that was they had the die cast department where the cylinders, et cetera, were die cast there out of aluminum, and then they had metal stamping facilities and all of that. I actually operated a punch press for a while and then went full time in the die cast department. So it's an industry that I am somewhat familiar with because I worked in it for several years when I was at Murray State University.
Absolutely, go Racers. So what are the big injuries that you tend to see? And unfortunately, these are types of injuries that you've dealt with multiple clients, crush-related injuries, right?
Yes, unfortunately, you do see some crush-related injuries, especially in these die-cast departments. Unfortunately, in my career, I've represented people who've been caught when the machines closed and they got caught in between there, and you can have some very, very, unfortunately, even death can occur from some of those crush-type injuries that occur in these facilities from that standpoint. So crushing is something, you've got a lot of pinch points in these industries, and that can create that problem from that standpoint. And so you've got to be very, very careful in these facilities, and you need to, as we talked about in the last episode, you need to make sure all the safety equipment is functioning properly and that you are utilizing every bit of the safety equipment that is available to you. When I worked the punch press machine at Briggs and Stratton, unfortunately, shortly before when I hired in, when I was in the training process, one gentleman that was working there lost all four fingers on one hand from a machine, a punch press that he was operating, and got caught in between it on the machine I operated. I had to have straps over my hands that connected to some to cables, and as the press come down, that would jerk my hands back if I didn't already have them pulled back to keep my hands from being able to be under the press when it come down. So as it come down, it pulled those cables back from that standpoint, and that was a safety device that it was up to me to put it on when I got there. My setup would come and check me every day to make sure I had it on. But if I left for some reason and then come back, I had to put it back on myself. And it's a conscious decision you have to make. So if there are safety devices available to you, make sure you use those. Because while I've represented a lot of people in my career, I'd just soon you not have that injury.
Yeah, and I know in episode 26 and episode 13, we did talk about, these types of injuries where you get into paralysis or an amputation, which, it's just, it's unfortunate. It's devastating. And as you said, it could lead to a workplace fatality if they can't get you help, quickly enough.
Correct. And crush injuries can be, if you have your hand crushed, even if it's not amputated, when you injure multiple bones, even they heal back, it's going to bother you the rest of your life. Arthritis is going to develop at a much greater pace, and so these injuries are lifelong injuries a lot of times.
And I got to think if you're working one of these jobs, you're coming in, you're tired, maybe at a late night or something like that. And just sometimes the nature of the work where it's somewhat repetitive, so you tend to, I don't want to say zone out, but maybe you're listening to some headphones or something like that. Maybe you've got some music going and just trying to pass the time. The risk of being inattentive, while you're doing this, it's got to be a little bit higher than some of the other jobs out there.
I think that's true.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, true. I think that when you're doing a repetitive job like that, that can occur. Frankly, it occurred to me some when I was doing that job at Briggs and Stratton, that punch press operator's job. It just got, the muscle memory got to where I could do it with my eyes closed and do it just fine to some extent with my eyes closed. But I would catch myself drifting off at times, and then luckily I had that safety gear on, and it would jerk my hand back because I wasn't focused or whatever at that point. So, excuse me. So that's another reason why you need to make sure you're using all that safety equipment.
Well, as your podcast producer, that was a very fantastic segue into repetitive motion injuries. You see what I did there?
You did.
Look
I saw
at
that.
Just
yes.
flowing.
Did that like a professional.
Like almost, yeah. No, but the repetitive motion and injuries is something we've talked about where you tend to have the same range of motion. You're lifting something over your head, especially a heavier item. Shoulder, neck, all sorts of different injuries can happen when you're doing that. Even carpal tunnel. I mean, if you're just using your hands a lot, it happens.
Right. And in this industry, these types of injuries, you do see that frequently. A lot of times in these industries, aluminum itself is not generally that heavy of a metal compared to obviously other metals, but a lot of these industries are using very heavy metals and having to lift that up and carry that. And what you'll see, we talk about the shoulder being a repetitive motion injury. In this industry as well, people will be bending over to pick up product, and you can, people don't really think about a back injury being a repetitive trauma injury, but a lot of times you can wear your back out from doing that type of stuff, where you're bending and lifting and twisting, and ends up having a back injury, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, you've got degenerative disc disease, and you need to, sometimes, I think we've talked about this once, it's an injury that people don't realize is a work-related injury or can be a work-related injury, and you need to tell the doctor, if you're 35 years old and you've got severe degenerative disc disease because of the industry you're working in, tell the doctor, I do this type of job, where I'm bending over and lifting 20 pounds and picking it up and put it in the machine or whatever your job is. I'm doing that 150 times every night. Let the doctor know that and ask them did that play a role in me having this degenerative disc disease to the level I do? And it very well could be a work-related injury, and you don't realize that it is.
Yeah, and I think you've brought up in the past, if you're using that range of motion and you're relatively young in your career, early onset arthritis can be a sign of a work-related repetitive motion type injury.
Correct. You'll hear a lot of times people will just say there's arthritis in the back. That's degenerative disc disease. Generally, when you get the records, that's what it'll have, DDD or degenerative disc disease. a lot of times they just tell the person arthritis because people understand arthritis is something that develops over time type situation. But in any joint, you can develop arthritis as well. And but as a general rule, it's in your later years that you develop it as again a general rule from that standpoint. So if you're a younger individual and you've got arthritis at a much greater level than would be normally expected, you need to bring that up and ask the doctor, did my work contribute to this, cause this? And if they say yes, then you need to report that immediately to your employer.
That makes a lot of sense. And friends, if you want a little bit more information on the repetitive motion type injuries, check out episode 31 and also episode 111. Both of those can be found right there on Jeff's website, jeffrobertslaw.com. Go over to the media page, and you'll be able to find the podcast. And there's a lot of information there, but that'll give you time at your own pace and at your own time when it's available to be able to listen to a little bit more in-depth information about specific types of injuries. And we've tried to put that together for you. Jeff, coming back to some of these other types of injuries that may happen to these kind of plants, burn injuries. Actually, you're dealing when you're forming metal. Or especially when you're die casting and things like that. I mean, the temperatures on these things get hot, and that could be the machinery, that could be the item itself. So there's a lot of burn injury risks.
Yes, there's quite a bit of burn injury risk in this standpoint. I've a lot of times, especially in the die cast, the product was shortly before you're dealing with it. It was molten metal.
Yeah,
and metal, depending on what product it is, it's different temperatures, but metal has got to be extremely, extremely hot to be molten. And, that makes a big difference. And, I know I mentioned CCMA earlier, and they're dealing with molten product over there frequently from that standpoint. And so you're dealing, a lot of times in these industries, you're dealing with very, very hot metal or hot product, and it can result in significant burn injuries that can be frankly life altering, because a lot of times if you get that product on you, it is if it's on you for any length of time, it is a third-degree burn pretty quickly from that standpoint. And so you've got to be very careful with those types of materials. Intake, again, all the safety precautions and wear all the personal protective equipment, the PPE that is available for you as well to help keep you from getting those types of injuries.
And that's the gloves, that's the arm sleeves, the arm guards, things like that. Plus,
maybe face masks.
Yeah, face masks as well. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Something else that comes up in these kind of facilities, just if you've ever walked through it, I mean, you wonder how people aren't just having all sorts of problems, but hearing loss, that's due to your workplace environment.
Yeah, these facilities frequently are extremely loud. When you've got metal dies slamming into each other, that makes a real loud noise. And all kinds of other, you've got machines running, etc. That these are very, very loud environments, and you can have hearing loss. And a lot of times people don't really realize that they're developing hearing loss. There's no pain associated with it. Their spouse and their family notice it a lot of times before they notice it from that standpoint. What you don't hear, you don't know that you're missing from that. And, they don't realize they're turning the TV up significantly higher than what it used to be turned up. To them, they're still hearing it, gone from a 20 to 50, but they're still hearing it at the level that 20 used to be for them. So a lot of times they don't realize they're having that hearing loss. Some plants will do hearing tests periodically, require an annual hearing test so that they can catch it early. And because if the earlier you catch it, hopefully the quicker you can slow it down until it doesn't get even worse and worse and worse. From that standpoint, but hearing loss is a compensable work-related injury in Kentucky if it's related to noise exposure at work or to trauma. You can have hearing loss from traumatic injury as well, and so a lot of people don't realize that yes, my hearing aids may be covered under workers' comp, and they should be paid. And if the hearing loss is significant, it can result in permanent disability benefits, even from that standpoint.
Wow. I've been on site in a number of these different types of facilities over the years, and I'm always amazed that the entrance to the factory, you've got these little squishy yellow ones that you kind of roll up in your hand and you stick it in your ear, and I wonder, that can't be enough protection. I mean, not if I'm in there, 5-6 days a week, for an 8-hour shift or longer. I'm amazed that the bigger clamshell type hearing protection wouldn't be more readily available.
It's rarely available that I've seen anyway in a manufacturing facility from that standpoint. And some of the roll-up ones are decent at the decibel level that they reduce things down to. And some are less beneficial.
Yeah.
There's from what I've seen anyway, there's a big difference between those. And the higher quality ones certainly are much better than the lower quality ones from that standpoint. But if that's all that's available to you, you need to take advantage of it, but also consider getting something a little better that you pack in, pack out yourself. Even if it's not available, I can't imagine an employer would have a problem with someone bringing one in that is a little better. Now, you need to have some hearing, obviously, but to reduce that decibel level down to prevent permanent hearing damage, if you can, is what you need to be doing. So
Yeah. Well, Jeff, along with ear type injury, hearing injuries, you've also got the risk in these types of plants for eye injuries, and this could be metal shards. Maybe you're grinding something, or maybe you're cleaning off edges, with a power tool. Maybe it's just sparks and things in the environment, in the air, from the actual processes that are taking place.
True, and that is something that you see. I have seen in my career from that standpoint. The safety glasses are something that you should be wearing if you're working around these type of products from that standpoint. And but yes, you do see those, and I've unfortunately had some who had very serious eye injuries and were blind as a result of the work injuries from that, and I can't imagine that. From that standpoint. So you've got to be very careful when you're working around these part of. Now, that individual actually was a result of he was working with molten aluminum.
Wow.
And unfortunately, unknown to him, the roof had leaked the night before from rain, and there was water at the bottom of the die that he was pouring the aluminum in, and it exploded back into his face. And so, when you're dealing with this type of product, things can occur in an instant without you even realizing there's a danger. He had no idea of the danger that was before him because he didn't know there was water at the bottom. He's pouring through a small hole and the water's at the bottom. He didn't know it.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever put water in a hot skillet, I mean, you can see what that was doing. Imagine what he's dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, molten aluminum and water don't mix.
No.
And but yeah, so when you're dealing with this type of product, it can, molten metal squirts out, and if it hits anywhere near the eye area, you can have very, very serious injuries. But as you talked about, if you're grinding, you got sparks flying from that standpoint. And metal in the eye you can lose vision in one or both eyes fairly quickly if you're not real careful. And again, I know I'll keep talking about safety equipment in these situations. I just assume people not get injured. And so if you wear your safety equipment, try to avoid these injuries. I don't want you having these lifelong consequences. So.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're wearing safety goggles, I mean, it gets a little hot. Maybe you get some dripping on the lenses. I've done that before, and it's frustrating at times. And okay, I got to slow down and clean that, but it's not worth the risk to go without it. If you can put a face shield over top of that, even better. Just give yourself a couple layers of protection. But I mean, there ought to be somebody. There ought to be a safety coordinator or somebody there on site that if you've got questions, you ought to raise your hand and ask. Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you're 100% correct. It can be, especially if you're in a hot environment where you're sweating. I still do my own mowing and weed eating. I
yeah.
enjoy that. It's summertime when I'm weed eating and sweat drips off my forehead onto the glasses, and it's frustrating because you can't see through them anymore. And it's I understand, and it would be real easy to just pull them off and keep on
going.
weed eating
Yeah.
instead of cleaning them, putting them back on, and keeping on weed eating. But and when I was younger, I've gone without wearing them at times and got stuff in my eyes and thought, I kind of like my eyes. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Until next time.
Yeah, I mean, when we're young, nothing ever is going to happen to us,
right.
and the older we get, the more we realize we are not invincible anymore.
Surprised I'm still here.
True. So yeah, that is that's something that I see there. One that we've not talked about yet. It kind of goes with the overexertion to some extent, or not really repetitive trauma, but with in these industries too. Frequently, you have people who are lifting heavy weights, I talked about back injuries from repetitive lifting. But you can have a back injury from just one instance of lifting where you lift something heavy, and all of a sudden your back you lift heavy, twist to place it somewhere, and have a sudden onset of back pain, and you can blow a disc real easily in these industries if you're not careful.
Yeah, and it'll take you right down to your knees. And
Yes.
then again, you've got other problems. You're on a factory floor, you've got heavy equipment moving around, you've got other people moving around. And that leads me into another segue here is the fact of the increased risk of forklift-related injuries, where you've got somebody who maybe didn't see you. I mean, obviously, you've got hearing protection in, so maybe you're not hearing somebody coming up behind you, but there's a lot of collisions. And in episode 103, we actually did a full episode on forklift accidents and injuries.
Yeah, and that is something. Nowadays forklifts, when they're in reverse, they beep. At least all of them I know of do. So if you're going backwards with them, the beeping, and that lets people kind of know. But a lot of factories I've been in, the walkway and the forklift travel lane are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And when the forklift is going forward, it's not beeping or making any noise, and well, it means making noise, but it's not making a loud noise to let people know it's coming.
Especially if you have your hearing aids in.
Yeah,
Hearing
and
protection.
unfortunately, sometimes the operators have product that's directly in their line of sight that makes it hard for them to see. And sadly, I've represented people who've been hit by forklifts for that very reason. But sometimes it is technically nobody's fault. Forklift drivers going down in the path they're supposed to be going, and the employees walking in a path that they're supposed to be going, and they just happen to get to a corner at the same time, and neither one sees the other until it's too late.
Yeah.
And so you can have those types of injuries, and those can be very, very serious injuries. Frankly, a lot of times you'll see those result because the person gets knocked down with such force they'll hit their head, and there'll be a closed head injury or traumatic brain injury from that type of accident from the forklift striking them.
Well, even if the forklift's able to stop in time, that doesn't mean the objects in front of the pallet aren't going to tumble off.
True, and that occurs too.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
you've got all sorts of issues there with that. You're dealing with also in any kind of manufacturing facility, but especially when you get into these situations where you've got just items all over the place if you're not really, really careful. The risk of trips, falls, I mean, these are substantial. I mean, as you said, we just talked about, head injuries from a fall, from getting hit possibly with a forklift or some other equipment. But also there's just the chance that you're going to trip and fall in these areas. And I don't know, the average consumer may kind of giggle a little bit or snicker a little bit when you hear trip and fall, slip and fall type things. I mean, there's always, you always got that, wow, that's just another one of those personal injury attorneys. But I mean, these are serious in a manufacturing facility.
They can be serious, absolutely. If you got stuff protruding out into the walkway that shouldn't be protruding out in the walkways at times from there. And a lot of times, especially when they are removing product, if you're cutting metal and all of that, whether it's through a machine process or what, you have oil that's being used to keep it lubricated and keep it cooled down from that standpoint. And then, if you're grinding away or cutting away at that, then that's slinging that oil around in places and it gets on the floor. And that can cause people to slip as well there. So yeah, those are injuries that do occur in these facilities through no fault of anybody's from that standpoint. Now, a lot of these facilities do want their employees to wear certain types of footwear, and some of it can be helpful if you're on concrete surface and there's oil on that. They can say there's footwear out there that may prevent, and there may be some that helps to slow it down, but oil is going to be slick on concrete, and I don't know that there's any shoe material on the bottom of it that's going to make it completely safe to where you won't fall. So
Yeah, and it's just, I've been in these plants where whether it was just a GE manufacturing facility, or you get into some of the others where you've got automotive. But like you said, there's going to be some kind of substance on the ground there that's just going to make it either slippery, or there could be something that maybe something fell off of a forklift and it's not supposed to be there, and you didn't know it, the driver didn't know it. Suddenly you're tripping because you've got other things in your hand.
Yeah.
You're trying to get somewhere. It's just, these are dangerous environments, and the people that work in these environments, it's hard work.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. It's hard work, and the risks are a little bit higher than somebody sitting in an office.
true. I rarely have to lift heavy objects here in my practice from that standpoint. And
Just
so,
my ego.
Yeah. But yes, the manufacturing facilities can be a dangerous place to work, and so you've got to be careful when you're in those facilities. But also, the employer has obligations to make it as safe as possible, make sure all the guards are there, make sure all the safety equipment is working like it's supposed to make sure that the supervisors, et cetera, are keeping an eye out. If product is stacked where it's not supposed to, where it's protruding out into the walkway, to get that moved out of the walkway before somebody comes through there. I talked about, people coming to curves with the forklift. Every one of them should have some sort of concave mirror where you could see, the operator can see around that, and the person walking can see around that to see if there's something coming. There are safety equipment available, or safety things available for the manufacturers to have that helps to significantly reduce the chances of an injury occurring, making sure all the personal protective equipment is available for the employees. In my opinion, that should be a responsibility of the manufacturer to provide to every employee. Some facilities say, well, you need to go out and buy your own this and that or whatever. I don't think that should never be the employee's responsibility. It should be the employer's responsibility to provide that. In my opinion, the manufacturer that is concerned about its employees would make sure their employees are as safe as possible.
Yeah, I think so, and that's luckily many are doing a pretty good job.
Yes,
but it doesn't take many to cause some serious problems for a lot of people.
True, and we have a lot of these things. We've talked about this to some extent in the past. We've mentioned OSHA and all of these others. A lot of these places are safer too. Some people have their own thoughts about unions, but one thing nobody can dispute is unions have done a real good job of making places of employment much safer for their workers, for that union from that standpoint. And they're good at getting wages and benefits as well, but they are usually very strong on making sure safety equipment is working the way it's supposed to be, and guards aren't taken off of machines. Rarely do I see a union shop that has those type of safety issues. I see it fairly frequently in some non-union shops, unfortunately.
Well, that makes sense. The best pay scale in the world doesn't really matter if you can't show up for work the next day.
Correct.
It really kind of comes down to that. Hey, Jeff, we've talked about a lot of different facilities that are located all throughout the Western Kentucky region. You've actually got 2 offices now to take care of people because, you're not just right here in Calloway County.
No, I have an office in Hopkinsville, and then I have my main office here in Calloway County, where I've been for 33 years now. I opened the office up in Hopkinsville and Christian County a few years back. I've always represented people up in that area, Hopkinsville, Russellville, even all the way up to Bowling Green. I've always had several clients up in those areas, and opening that office in Hopkinsville has allowed me to better serve those clients from that standpoint.
And that's right there on South Virginia, right?
South Virginia Street.
Yeah, outstanding. Well, Jeff, regardless of where they are, they've really only got one phone number they have to worry about calling if they want to get in touch with you.
Correct. The phone number, which is the best way to reach me, is by phone. From that standpoint, initially anyway, phone number is 270-753-0053. You can reach out to me through that phone, and then we will gather information, see what we can do for you from that standpoint. So.
Fantastic. And it doesn't cost them anything to call, right? I mean, you offer free consultations. That's the type of law this is, actually. That's just a really good policy that you have.
I do offer free initial consultations to clients, potential clients from that standpoint. And, it never hurts to call and just find out what your, what the benefits you may be entitled to, what the law is, and so you can make informed decisions. Even if you don't hire me, at least you have that information at this point. And I think you'll find out after you talk to me. I know I've mentioned my motto on here several times, but the motto for our office that I and my clients I and my staff try to live up to in every case is to provide small town service and deliver big city results. And I think most people that's talked to me, even in that initial visit, will say that I provided a lot of information in that initial visit. Even if they didn't hire me, I provided them that information, and that's part of providing the small town service.
Well, Jeff, and I think if anybody goes out and looks at your Google reviews, I mean, that's a common thread in a lot of those reviews that come back as 5-star ratings. If you go out and Google Roberts Law Office Murray, you're going to see just a tremendous number of individual people who have gone on there and left reviews. And a lot of it has to do with your communication. Yes, it's the results, obviously, but they like the fact that you kept them informed, and that's a big difference.
Right. Yeah, a lot of them have said that. From that standpoint, I've always, when I've dealt with something that an area or dealing with somebody handling something for me that I didn't know, whether it's just working on my vehicle, whether it's a medical issue, the mechanic or the doctor informing me of what's going on, keeping me up to date with things from that, and informing me so I can make an informed decision. I've always appreciated that. That's what I've always wanted, and by the same token, I think that's what my clients are owed from me as well.
Outstanding. Well, Jeff, once again, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And there's just a lot of manufacturing that goes on all throughout Kentucky, and I'm glad they've got somebody like you as a resource.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.